All right, welcome back, Truth Seeker. It is Tuesday, November 2nd, 2022. Again, all the news media hyper-focused on the political election. Of course, we do this every 2 years. For the person out there says, no, every 4 years. Every 4 years for the president, but every 2 years we're voting on, congressmen, senators. And every year I just say to myself, when is America going to learn? When is America going to learn? When are they going to stop participating in this rigged show that is? Speaking of when are they going to learn, I just missed my turn. Again, we are in new territory here, but we got it. But when is America going to learn? It just amazes me. It amazes me that people continue to believe in these political parties who every single time, it never fails, campaign on something and do the exact opposite. And I've only been on this earth since 1983. The president was Ronald Reagan when I was born. And Ronald Reagan ran on shrinking government. And it's amazing that so many people think he's still the greatest president there ever was. But Ronald Reagan ran on shrinking government, and while was president, made government bigger than it had ever been before. Everybody knows this quote about how, he wants the government so small that he can drown it in the bathtub. But that might be what he's remembered for in the rhetoric, but he made government bigger than it had ever been before. So just think about that. He ran on making it smaller and made it the biggest it ever was. And, his legacy is still, I think probably the greatest thing about the Ronald Reagan legacy is all the homeless people on the streets. Ronald Reagan shut down all the mental hospitals, which were mostly full of veterans who were traumatized in the war and who lost their mind and became alcoholics and developed all sorts of mental problems. But Ronald Reagan, he shut down those government programs, and all of a sudden the streets were flooded with homeless. And you can turn on Fox News and listen to any host at any hour of the day harp on about all the homeless in America. And again, whose legacy is that really? I mean, we know Fox News is the Republican news network, but they make it seem like it was Democrats and liberals. And at the same time, you can say it was, because Ronald Reagan his entire life was a Democrat and a liberal until he became the 33rd governor of California and then the president of the United States. And of course, he has all the parallels to Donald Trump, who was a lifelong Democrat and liberal until Barack Obama became president. And then, of course, he ran for president and ran on the same campaign as Ronald Reagan, Make America Great Again. But that's Ronald Reagan. He was the first president when I was in office. He said, I will make government so small we can drown it in the bathtub, and then made government bigger than it had ever been before. The exact opposite. The next president, who was his vice president, George H.W. Bush, he ran on no new taxes. Mark my words, read my lips, no new taxes. And then what happens? Lots of new taxes. They say that's why he was a one-term president, because he went against his whole campaign pledge and promise. Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton became involved in all these little wars that had to do with the breakup of the Soviet Union, which happened right before he became president. He ran on peace and prosperity, but then was involved in a lot of wars. And I want to talk about Bill Clinton. It's just he gets a lot of credit for the stock market stuff booming in the time he was on, because the internet was taken off and there was all these startups, and kind of right place, right time for Bill Clinton. But remember, another one of these Jesuit clowns, like pretty much the qualification for being in D.C., you got to have some connection to the Jesuits who've been there longer than the federal government. But then the next Bush, so Clinton was between the two Bushes. So then you get Bush in, and Bush says that his father's mistake was becoming involved in these wars in the Middle East. And he said he doesn't want to do any nation building like his father. He doesn't want to be involved in wars like his father. He said that was the mistake of his father as well, getting involved in those skirmishes, the nation building. Well, then what does his whole presidency become? Wars and skirmishes in the Middle East and nation building. Exactly the opposite of what he said. And for the person out there who goes, well, 9/11 happened. Yeah, well, 9/11 happened. And that's the thing, too. There's always an excuse, right? Again, yeah, 9/11 did happen. And was it the official story? Was it the man in the cave? Was it the cave dwellers? Bush always said. I mean, if you're into that, you're probably also the person that still believes in the politicians. And you're probably still going out and voting in the rigged elections. Again, if you're new here, the elections are definitely rigged. Let's go back to George W. Bush, King George II, number 43, where the election came down to Florida, where his brother was the 43rd governor. His brother just happened to be the 43rd governor. His daddy was the 43rd vice president. They're all 43. And again, the two that were president went to Yale and were members of the powerful secret society Skull and Bones. If you're new here, it's called GematriaEffectNews because Gematria is the language of the ruling class, the government class. And they work by this code of letters and numbers, which comes from Kabbalah. Again, the Cabal, you've heard that term, the secret political faction. Kabbalah comes from the Cabal. The secret code is letters and numbers. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, E is 5, F is 6, up to Z the 26, R is 26. If you add up the letters of Yale, Y is the 25th letter, A is the 1st, L is the 12th, E is the 5th, Yale 43. You see? This is how they do it. You know, it's how we told you Joe Biden would be number 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday. There's meaning to these numbers. I predicted before Trump was even the Republican nominee why he'd win the 58th election after announcing from the 58-story Trump Tower. Again, there's numerical rituals behind all this stuff as well. But again, just take away the numbers and the ritualism. Just look at how every last politician goes against their campaign promises and pledges. It happens every single time. But then they do give people an excuse for why it had to happen. Oh, a war was started. Oh, buildings came down. Oh, there was a COVID pandemic. These are lies. Again, it's just, people have to stop submitting to lies. Politics is nothing but lies. The news is nothing but lies. These are all stories that are lies that are meant to keep you invested or to keep you making some excuse for what you believed in before. Well, he wouldn't have done that, but no. Donald Trump did not need to go along with the World Health Organization and everything that just happened. It's amazing how many people right now think had Donald Trump stayed in office, everything would be different right now. Everything that's happening right now is because Donald Trump was in office and went along with the plan, the agenda, the script. So yeah, just moving down the line, again, you got Bush, Obama. Obama showed that he was a fraud before he even got in the Oval Office. Obama said that this is the most important issue of our times. Remember when he was on the campaign trail, you had our Congress debating on if we should pass new legislation to give immunity to the telecommunication companies for collecting all of our data and information and violating our constitutional rights. They went beyond what was the scope of the Patriot Act. They violated our constitutional rights. Obama said, I am a constitutional lawyer. This cannot stand. This is wrong. This needs to be stopped. There cannot be immunity for these companies. He was right on point. Everything he was saying was 1,000,000% correct. But then when it came time to vote, and again, I started calling him O-Bummer. For people who know I call him O-Bummer. I started calling him O-Bummer as soon as he did this. I was living in Seattle at the time. I told all the people, I said, his new name is O-Bummer, you guys. I said, if you support this guy, you're just supporting another political fraud, and you're only supporting him based on the color of his skin. When it came time to vote, he voted the exact opposite of what he'd been saying. He said we could not give them immunity, and then he ends up voting for immunity for the telecom companies. And it's obvious how it works. It's got to be something like the Bill Hicks joke. Again, for people not familiar with the comedian Bill Hicks, I encourage everybody to watch that guy's comedy special called Sane Man. It's probably to me, it's the funniest comedy special there ever was. But, I can't stand when people say Bill Hicks is Alex Jones. It's so annoying. Go look at the two when they were both alive at the same time. They looked nothing alike. Bill Hicks looked a lot older than Alex Jones. Alex Jones was just a young guy back then. Alex Jones back then worked out and was bulkier. Bill Hicks was a taller, slender gentleman. Not to mention, again, Bill Hicks is a lot taller than Alex Jones. So unless they cut a section of his legs out, I don't know how they could possibly be the same person. But anyway, go back and listen to Bill Hicks's joke about what they must do with these guys before they take the Oval Office. You know, he had a joke about all the footage they must show him behind the scenes. You know, maybe the hidden angle of how they blew JFK's head off, and just say, you know, if you want to keep going along with all this crap you're talking and not do our game plan, it's going to be you too. I mean, it really could be something like that. Because all of these guys do go 100% against what they pledge every single time. And it's just amazing. It's amazing that people would want to continue to vote in this kind of political system where everyone goes against their campaign pledges and promises. It ends up being a complete 180. And again, I mean, it doesn't matter if they're Democrats or Republicans. They serve the ruling class. They serve the mega corporations. Don't forget what's on the wall of the House of Representatives. The Roman fasces, which is the root word of fascism. And fascism, as coined by Mussolini, the dictator, who made the Vatican an independent city-state, who was a Jesuit. He said fascism is when you have the merger of government and corporation, which is what we have pretty much throughout the entire modernized world. Fascism is what won the world wars. That's pretty much the ruling system all across the world, no matter if they call it a democracy or communism. It's fascism across the world. And that's the other thing that Bill Clinton was notorious for, you know, helping a lot of American businesses go to China. NAFTA. That happened, of course, it was mostly Republican legislation, but you had a Democratic president, and Clinton supported it. I mean, Clinton was pretty much a Republican. It's weird that Republicans hate Clinton so much because, I mean, you look at all of his policies and things, I mean, pretty conservative, pretty big business, you know, pretty low taxes. It's like he's probably the closest thing to like a Republican conservative there's been in my lifetime. He got the budget in balance, yet he's the most hated by it. It doesn't even make politics doesn't make sense on any level if you're actually paying attention. But anyway, who we covered? Ronald Reagan. Again, just to recap, Ronald Reagan said he's going to make government so small he can kill it in the bathtub, makes government bigger than any president ever had before. His VP becomes President Bush and says no new taxes and then makes a bunch of new taxes. Bill Clinton, again, NAFTA, he pretty much destroyed American industry. He outsourced it. He opened up the floodgates for outsourcing, and, you know, then came Michael Moore with his documentary Roger and Me about what happened in Michigan with everybody fleeing Michigan to make all their stuff abroad to make bigger corporate profits. And again, I don't like Michael Moore, but the best film he ever made was Roger and Me, because he makes the point. He says, look at how profitable these companies were in America. They made big profits. These guys lived high on their horse. Why did they have to leave for even bigger profits at the expense of destroying American cities? Again, the word is greed, right? And actually the word is, if you go to business school, the word is corporation. Again, a corporation only has one purpose. A corporation only has one purpose, and for people who don't know, before I even say this, back in the early days of this country, a corporation was illegal except for when it came to massive projects that were temporary, like building a railroad across the nation. And the reason corporations were illegal is because they knew that they would influence greed and do exactly what they do. Because the only purpose of a corporation is to make profits for the shareholders. And I guess in a free world, you can say, well, we should have the freedom to do that, to make a corporation and, you know, give it all these rights, and, you know, people can invest in that. But we see what the problem is. We see how corporations can destroy communities in the name of making a few extra pennies for their shareholders and their owners. And is that ultimately good for society? No, it's not good for society. You know, go to Flint, Michigan, where they now use it to perform war drills and exercises. It's pretty much a third world country in America. But again, So after Clinton comes Bush, who said no nation building, no wars and skirmishes like his father, but then ends up doing the exact same thing, and it's all blamed on 9/11. And again, 9/11. For the person who's new here, well, again, for the person who's new here who has a brain, go back to 1968. World Trade Center construction began in New York. 911 made the national emergency dialing code. George W. Bush graduates from Yale and Skull and Bones. By the way, fentanyl was approved that year. Coronavirus was coined. 2001: A Space Odyssey came out. All of these things fit together when you realize that after 9/11, we went into Afghanistan, killed the Taliban, restored poppy production, which is opium, which is heroin, which is fentanyl. And in the wake of that, the world's now flooded in fentanyl and heroin and opioids and oxy and all this stuff. Again, none of this stuff's by accident. It's all planned agenda. It's all planned agenda. And notice that was 33 years later, of course, in D.C., known as the Masonic City, nicknamed after a secret society because the city's named after a Freemason, George Washington. But again, 33 years from 68 to 2001, when all that stuff happened, Bush became president, 9/11 happened. 33 years later, like how the Masonic headquarters in D.C. has 33 columns on the outside, each 33 feet tall, and in Gematria, Masonry, Secrecy, Order, Federal, Bonesman, they're all 33. George W. Bush was a Bonesman. It's what the alumni of Skull and Bones are. And for the record, Skull and Bones equals 41, like his father was number 41. And as I just learned at the Yale campus, they have 41 secret societies there. It's like, wow, so 41 secret societies at the Yale campus. And right now, everybody likes Ron DeSantis, who's a member of one of those secret societies. But if you look into where Yale is in New Haven, the zip code there ends with 41 as well, which is interesting. Anyhow, we've covered Reagan. We're just talking about the presidents in my lifetime. Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush again, and how Democratic can we be, right? The two Republican presidents in a row are father and son, King George the First and the Second, Obama, and then Trump. And again, Trump, see, his whole base is like, well, it would have been different if COVID didn't happen. Well, COVID didn't need to happen. Let's just say I was president of the United States. I saw through it all as soon as it happened, you guys. And for people who are new here, I'd say go back and watch everything I said at the beginning of the pandemic. But I predicted it all dead on. And I have a book out there that's been out for over 2 years, and I wrote in the book why they'll wind down the COVID pandemic as soon as the year of the tiger rolls around, which is exactly what they did, because this is all ritual by the numbers, and including other symbolism like the Chinese calendar and zodiac, because remember, it's the China virus, as Trump told us. But Trump went along with it, and it all perfectly by the numbers. Again, for the person that's new out there, here's what you need to know. Donald Trump's Jesuit education began in 1964. 64. That was 56 years before 2020. And remember, he's a Jesuit. He went to Fordham. If you write out Society of Jesus, that's the formal title of the Jesuits. If you're new here, by the way, the cipher is the alphabetic order and the alphabetic order with numerology. When you use numerology, Society of Jesus equals 56, coronavirus equals 56, COVID vaccines 56, Anthony Fauci's 56, who's a Jesuit, who said 10 days before Trump took office, go back and listen to his speech at Georgetown, at Jesuit Georgetown, he said January 10th, 2017, he said in the next presidential administration, which was Trump to take office 10 days later, there will be a surprise pandemic. How would he know such a thing? Because again, we're living out planned rituals. They got to have all their planned puppets in there who have just the right numbers for every last ritual. Again, the word Jesuit alone is 42, like Georgetown. Clinton went from being the 42nd governor of Arkansas to the 42nd president. Another Jesuit grad who the Oklahoma City bombing was synced up with in a big Jesuit ritual on the anniversary of Ignatius Loyola becoming the first superior general of the Jesuits. But anyway, Trump's Jesuit education being 56 years before the pandemic, where they coded 1,056,000 on it. Gavin Newsom equals 56, who's a Jesuit, who said 56% of California will get coronavirus in 8 weeks, which is 56 days. Again, first governor to lock down his state. But Trump, when he declared the emergency for this nation, he did it on Friday the 13th. A date, Friday the 13th, for people who are new, is a superstition associated with the burning of the Knights Templar at the stake in Paris, France, which is where the Jesuits are from. The Templars are the old military order of the Catholic Church, where the Jesuits are the current military order. That's why the Templar cross is in the Jesuit logo. But he declared it on 3/13/2020. What was the date numerology that day? 3 plus 13 plus 20 plus 20, 56. Again, that's why people need knowledge and information so they can stop getting played by these secret societies that really run this nation, that use their two-party scheme to keep everybody going back and forth like a teeter-totter, as neither party ever delivers on what they say they will. And by the way, I didn't even say this about Obama, but remember what the Democrats ran on when Obama won. They ran on ending the wars. They had the House, the Senate, and the Oval Office. They had all three branches of government. Just like when Biden took office, they had all three branches, just like we predicted they would. Not only did we predict that Biden would become number 46 in the election 46 weeks after the post birthday, we said, watch, it'll be just like when Obama took office. They'll have all three branches, and they do. But again, I mean, it's just like, how could you ever vote for a Democrat again? They had all three branches, ran on ending the wars, and then they escalated the wars. They increased spending. They increased drone bombing. They increased troop deployments. It's just, guys, it's not going to be any different when the Republicans take things back in this election. They're running on all this stuff. They're going to fix energy prices, blah, blah, blah. Watch how none of it happens. Watch how none of it happens. There'll be some excuse. There'll be something that happens in the world that prevents it from happening. It's just, when are people going to learn? Every single one of these politicians they put in there is chosen because they know they're down with the plan. And they've always got some excuse in their back pocket for why things didn't go as planned. And people just keep falling for it. They just keep falling for it. So if you're out there going, well, what's the solution? Well, here are solutions. Stop voting in these elections. Then they can't rig them. If nobody shows up at the polls, they can't tell you that Joe Biden got the record 81 million votes. We all know that's a joke. By the way, President Biden equals 81 in Gematria. I'm out here in the liberal Northwest. I can't find a Joe Biden yard sign or bumper sticker anywhere. I've never seen it in my lifetime. You know, people still have more Hillary Clinton bumper stickers on their car right now at this moment than Joe Biden, because I can't find a Joe Biden one. There's no way he got the most votes ever. You think he got more than Obama? I mean, no way. No way. And by the way, you'd understand why they called the election for Biden when he was at 74 million votes. That's what he was at when they called it for him, if you knew the code. They call D.C. the Masonic city. Masonic equals 74. So does occult. So does Gematria. So does English. So does energy. So does Jewish. So does holiday. When you use numerology, Independence Day 74. That's a big number in this nation's history, 7-4. That's why they lay all their cornerstones on 7-4, these Masons. But yeah, all this stuff, you guys. And, you know, Joe Biden, you know what? You know what, though? I got to give it to Joe. We knew that Joe Biden was running on the Green New Deal. Remember, Green New Deal equals 113, like the election was November 3rd. Another reason we knew they'd call it for Joe Biden. Again, the Green New Deal ties in with Agenda 21 and 2030, which is what really everything's about right now. And, you know, again, I have been saying that all these presidents go against what they say, but in the case of Joe Biden, he's done exactly what he said he was going to do. And the problem is, you know, who would ever want this? Who would ever want what's going on right now? The purposeful destruction of the economy, the purposeful destruction of pretty much everything that's right. And for the person who says, well, we got to take care of the earth, I do agree. But is climate change really, is that really, I mean, cars have such low emissions today. It's just, we've come a long ways in terms of polluting the air. What we really do have to do, well, and they are doing it. Again, it's complicated because they are achieving things that in a way do need to be done. We do need to reduce consumption and stuff, but it could be done in a way that's a lot less devastating to the average American. Again, this guy got so slow as he went off the freeway. these newer cars, they read way up the road, and they match speeds and whatnot. And it can be annoying if somebody slows way down, way in front of you. It slows your speed way down too. This car's a 2018, but anyway, if there's been any president in my lifetime who delivered on what they said they would, it is Slow Joe. It's just the problem is nobody wants delivery on this crap, you know. And for people who do not understand what's going on right now, all of this stuff, you guys, you got to look into Agenda 21 and 2030. These things were agreed to in 1992. Well, Agenda 2030 was the follow-up to Agenda 21, and then that happened while Obama was president, which also makes sense why his VP sidekick's in there, Slow Joe, as we approach. But everything going on right now are about agreements from decades ago. And that's why they got to keep putting in one stooge after the next who's already down with the plan, already down with the agenda. And it doesn't matter if you have these Republicans who are speaking an opposite game. Just watch. If they get in there, they're going to be going along with the same agenda. They'll create some new problem so that they say, well, I didn't want to do this, but I had to do this. Again, Trump could have said, you know what, I see through this bullshit. Trump could have been on the microphone saying, you know what, American people, look into these things that your politicians signed off on 30 years ago. These people agreed to this stuff 30 years ago, and you're feeling the consequences of it now. That's what this really is. Just like how we were saying when this all started. We knew what it was. So if Trump was the real hero that so many people think he is, he could have been doing this too, instead of declaring, you know, a national emergency, you know, like it was real, you know, and then bragging about being the father of the vaccine. And you guys, for all of you who still can't see that Trump's a puppet on strings, it's so obvious. Go back and look at what day he declared Operation Warp Speed. He declared it May 15th, 2020, which was the 2-year anniversary of May 15th, 2018, which was the day of the first coronavirus-related simulation. It was called CladeX. They did the simulation nicely 666 days before the pandemic was declared. Biblical, just like I told you when I told you guys the night that they called it for Trump with the Trump-Pence ticket. Trump-Pence, like trumpets, which are the warnings in Revelation, the final book of the Bible, which teaches about 666. In Gematria, Holy Bible equals 45. So does Berlin Wall, and of course they called Trump the 45th president-elect on the anniversary of the Berlin Wall falling. More mockery. Tempted to stop at this gas station right here. The prices are pretty decent. Out here, that's about as good of a price as you're going to find on the West Coast right now. In the city I just left from, gas is still over $5 a gallon, but here it's a little bit bigger town. See, a lot of stations are still up close to $5, but that one's got it at $4.37. You guys on the East Coast right now are lucky. I saw your guys is back down in the $3 range. Out here on the West Coast, they're still raping us. But the day that Trump did Operation Warp Speed, coronavirus equals 155 when you don't use numerology, like 15/5. And that's also the day that is the celebration of Mercury, the planet. And of course, Mercury is the ingredient that's in a lot of jabs that's debated in the scientific community in terms of its health impacts. And, you know, when I was a child, they taught us that Mercury made Mad Hatters, you know, made people go insane, and had other health consequences that shortened people's lifespans drastically. But, you know, there's a debate in the scientific community that the mercury that they put in the vaccines is different and isn't harmful, and you can't say too much on the two, but just think about the ritual of it all. You know, and he likes to call himself the father of the jab. That's put a lot of people in an early, you can only say so much, but some people are 6 feet under that probably voted for Trump and wanted to go out and support his miracle jab. Going to save the world from the killer cooties that was seemingly only deadly if you went to the hospital. But yeah, it's just, you know, It's amazing to me. And the fact that anyone could think these elections are legitimate. Again, going back to 2000 when Bush became number 43 because of the election in Florida where his brother was the 43rd governor. Remember, the Supreme Court intervened. And it was his father's Supreme Court picks that stopped the recount in Florida. Again, right? I mean, the American people should have been out in the streets, right? If we really are a democracy and our votes all that we got, why is the Supreme Court deciding the election? I mean, how many red flags do you need? It comes down to the state where his brother's the governor. At first, it's called for Al Gore. Al Gore's announced as the new president-elect, and then 30 minutes later, Florida announces that, wait a minute, we think we counted wrong. We think Bush might have actually won. And then we don't even get to ever have an official recount because the Supreme Court stopped it. On what grounds did the Supreme Court stop the recount that were legitimate? That's why, you guys, I was 17 when that happened. I've never voted. It's not that I haven't been politically active. I've been more politically active than almost any American. I get out and I speak. When election season comes around, I show up. I've been out at polling places where people are gathering and trying to get people to wake up to how fraudulent the system is, you know? So again, it was 2020. It was April 19, 2020. I was in Washington State. It was a rally against the lockdowns. And I remember I had these older people who were just disgusted with me because they couldn't believe that I was advocating that we need to stop supporting these rigged. They said, if you don't vote, you're not an American. They were like 70 years old. I mean, they're the same generation that slows down the tubes, the baby boomers. But I can still picture their faces, you know. Older group moving together. I don't know if it was a few husband and wife teams that go out. And anyway, it was mostly a Republican gathering, but yeah, again, you guys, when you vote in these elections, all you're doing is validating a lie. That is all you are doing. And if you think you're doing anything else, I'm sorry, your head is up your ass. These elections are so rigged. They're such a joke. And don't forget, in the last one, in 2020, again, let's just talk more about 2020. Look into the Transition Integrity Project. It took place at Jesuit Georgetown. That's who runs your nation. The Transition Integrity Project. It was a simulation of the upcoming election. In the simulation, Biden narrowly wins. Trump refuses to step down. And it leads to deadly violence and chaos in America. Does that sound like January 6th? And don't forget, yours truly put out a video about January 6th, about why you would see the Confederate flag on display, how they'd pay tribute to the Civil War, how at least one person would die. And all of that was correct. And that was the last time for people who are new here, I used to get big views. My channel's been deleted a million times. I'm at the very bottom of the YouTube algorithm. I'm super censored. But the last time I had any videos that even got any kind of viewership, it was those. And I did 2 videos on it, and they were both approaching 100,000 views. And then YouTube took them both down. These were videos made before January 6th happened. I said exactly everything that would happen that day that became the news story. I was dead on about every prediction. And they took down both videos for medical misinformation. Medical misinformation? It didn't have anything to do with medicine. What I might have mentioned in it was just the pattern of 56, because they also coded that into the ritual. Remember, Captain America Civil War came out 56 months to the day of the insurrection. Civil War equals 56, so does Washington, D.C. If you run it the other way around, both Civil War and Washington, D.C. have the 61 connection, like how it was on the date written 6/1, like how the American Civil War began in 1861. But yeah, those videos were taken down for medical misinformation, and now you see why they took down those videos, right? Because that has been the nonstop story ever since it happened. They haven't stopped talking about January 6th. And imagine if that video were still on YouTube. It'd probably have over 1 million views by now. and a lot of people would know what's really up. And that's what kills me. Just all the real knowledge and information that I've put out there, undeniable, a million correct predictions about rigged elections, rigged sports, what'll be in the news before it happens. All this stuff should still be up on YouTube's platform. The YouTube channel would probably have over 1 million subscribers. We'd probably get 1 million views per video based on the correct resume of a gazillion accurate predictions, totally forecasting the future, why 2020 was going to be the nightmare year that it was, something I called out 5 years in advance. Again, who knows, might be the most popular YouTuber in the world based on the resume had it not all been deleted and censored, and maybe we'd be having a real impact in changing the world. And maybe when we had just gone to New York City, instead of having less than 100 people there, we would have had thousands of people, you know? So again, I encourage people out there to stop denouncing the truth, stop voting in rigged elections, stop supporting political parties. This is all the shit they want you to do. And they got America doing everything they want them to do. It needs to change, you guys. It needs to change. I see you guys are posting in there about a dead rapper. I did see that there's another dead rapper. I'll take a look at that too. Today, having to run a few more errands. I got to get this windshield repaired before the weather gets colder because I got 3 massive rock chips driving back from New York City. I've always had good luck with my windshield until the trip back from New York City. For people who missed it, most of that content's still up. They took down the very best video from our New York 9/11 gathering. Of course, they had to censor it for medical misinformation. They just keep taking down everything for medical misinformation, even though it's nothing but facts and truth, and we're not even really talking about medicine. We were talking about 9/11. But, yeah, on the way back, I had the tire blowout and got 3 big fat rock chips, so we got to get that taken care of today. And I'm learning the joys of living in a small town. Sometimes you got to drive a long ways to get to the place where the repair can be done. But yeah, it's just sad just watching America never learn, and people just still so caught up in their political parties that lie to them and never follow through. And again, I mean, just look at the way politics is in America, right? You look at the way politics is in America. People aren't even really voting for candidates that they believe in. They're voting for the candidate that they hate less. Look at almost every political advertisement. It's not about vote for me because I'll do this, and this to make this country better. I mean, there are some ads like that. They're few and far between. It's mostly just an attack ad on the other candidate. How evil the other, like right now in Washington State, they're running an ad nonstop against this woman named Smiley. And where do they always find these people with these names too? Like, whose name is Smiley? But anyway, Smiley supports the January 6th insurrectionists. Smiley still denies the 2020 election results. It's like, and look at the way they did the 2020 election. Everybody went to bed that night thinking Trump had won a second term, and then they wake up and all of a sudden, somehow in the middle of the night, all these votes poured in for Biden. It's just like, they did it that way on purpose. They did it that way on purpose because it was just like their simulation. Transition Integrity Project, June 12th, 2020. By the way, they did that simulation 144 days before the election. If you just write out President Biden with the alphabetic order, it equals 144 like Jesuit order. Huge number with the Jesuits. Just like JFK, he met with the Jesuit Pope. Well, he wasn't the first publicly Jesuit Pope, but pretty much all the popes are Jesuit. From his meeting with the Pope to his death was a span of 144 days. And of course, JFK killed at age 46. Joe Biden becomes number 46, the nation's second Catholic president. In Gematria, Catholic equals 35 forwards, 46 in reverse. JFK, number 35, killed at age 46. Biden, number 46, elected 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday, inaugurated on the Pope's 35th day of his age. Again, you learn this little simple code, you see who really controls America. And it's the Roman Catholic Church, it's the Jesuit order, It's these secret societies. They do call DC the Masonic City, but who created modern Freemasonry? Of course, the Jesuits did. And again, you know, go back and listen to George Carlin's skit. It's a big club and you're not in it. Donald Trump's in it. Joe Biden's in it. Ron DeSantis is in it. Nancy Pelosi's in it. The people that rule over you are in it. We're not in it. And you got all of us not in the club. Well, I shouldn't say all of us, but you got so many of us who are not in the club. Come on, navigation. Well, your navigation doesn't work as well if you're ever a YouTube live streamer. It just showed me to turn left here as I pull up to the light. I didn't see any notification before that. The last notification just said keep moving forward. Anyway, I am almost to my destination, and let's see if I'll be able to make a left turn out of this lane. Anyway, you guys, for the person who's new here, who's listening to all this, if you doubt anything I'm saying, look into all of it. Look into all of it. You'll see it's all facts. And please stop participating in these rigged selections. Stop validating the lie. And yeah, I better sign off here. It says the windshield repair place is here, but all I see is a grocery store and a gas station. Okay. We'll get it figured out, Truth Seeker. Signing off for now. By the way, one more thing. Dane Calloway, I mentioned on Friday that we were going to do a collaboration. He got delayed, but I had a nice long conversation with him this morning. And we are going to do a video soon, but I guess it won't be a live stream. He said he doesn't like to live stream. He said, and he goes, I know you say a lot of things that get my channel taken down. So he said, I might have to edit some things. And that's fine, you guys. I mean, I'd rather it not be that way, but he does make his living off his YouTube channel, unlike yours truly. I don't make any money off this. Again, I'm totally demonetized again. In all the years I've been on YouTube, I've only been monetized for very tiny periods of time. Sometimes they let me slip through and monetize the channel. They'll never pay me for any of the videos. They demonetize the ad content, but they'll allow you guys to give me super chats until they demonetize again, which has happened one more time. It's the third time I had a channel monetized and the third time it's been taken away. But there will be a video on there soon, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if it brings in some more people to the work. Because if you guys are not familiar with Dane Calloway, he does have a massive following on YouTube. He's got approaching 1 million subscribers. And yeah, he also does good work. So we'll leave it there for now, True Seeker. Gonna gas it up and then get the windshield repair. And if somebody wants to leave a comment who knows something about windshield repair, they said to try and gas the car up all the way before the windshield repair. And I'm like, why? Like, why would the car have to be filled up with gas? I got to fill it up anyway, but I'm just trying to figure that out. How is the windshield related to the gas tank? Anyway, that's what they said in the instructions, so I'm doing it. And yeah, please try not to vote. Again, if you think it's your American duty to vote, you better wake up from the American dream and wake up to the American reality. We need to put the federal government out of business. Again, that's what we should be doing as Americans. Let's get rid of this tyrannical federal government. Let's get it down to state government. Maybe we could create something in the place of the federal government, like some basic agreement between states to preserve the union. But we don't need all these federal taxes and all this federal tyranny and federal governments trumping state governments. For example, here in Washington State, when we legalized marijuana back in 2012, you know what the feds did? The feds came in and raided people's shops and stole all their money and their supplies and ruined their businesses because it was still illegal federally. Think about that. That's what our federal government is. The state says it's okay, but then here comes the feds to seize the businesses of the people who are operating within the law of the state. That went on in Colorado, too. I just speak about it because I'm out here in Washington State. And I'm someone who also lost a legitimate marijuana business from the authorities. So, again, federal government is evil. No one should support it. Pretty much if you support it, I'd say it makes you evil. I'd think about that statement. If you disagree with me, actually think about what I'm saying. If you support the federal government and vote for anything that's federal, you become part of that. You validated it. And tell me where our federal government isn't evil. What's it doing that's not evil? Invading nations, killing brown people, trumping states' rights. What's it doing that's positive? I can't think of a single thing the federal government does that's positive. Props up the welfare state? That's not positive. That just makes more people dependent on government, which makes them bigger losers. Which makes hardworking people have to pay more taxes for deadbeats. And for all the people who don't like that rhetoric, sorry. If you expect somebody else to take care of you, that makes you a deadbeat. All right. Until next time.